Hey everybody, welcome to today's stream. I hope you're all doing good today. So today we're going to be playing with Amazing Mold Maker, the new silicone from Lumilite. So this was a request actually on the last stream, and on Friday we did the patron hangout and we cast some gator jaw blanks, and I was thinking we could make some faux gator jaw silicone molds with the Amazing Mold Maker. So I actually did a quick test of this yesterday. I just wanted to make sure that more so for like the mold making, you know, like the physical mold itself, not so much to try it out. But I gotta say, I am pretty impressed with this stuff, and so we'll go through it obviously while we're doing this stream. But I think it's actually a really good silicone. I was very impressed, and I'm pretty picky when it comes to silicones. I don't, many of them I really don't like using, and I finally kind of found some that I like in the Plat series from Lumilite. Mainly my biggest gripe with a lot of the silicones is they're like super thick, like taffy. And to stir that up, it's just not very fun. You definitely have to use a vacuum to degas it, and there's, you know, it makes it a little bit tougher. So this stuff is pretty simple to use. So let's, I guess, get right to it. So what I'm going to do, one of the other things that I really like about this, there could be some drawbacks to this, specifically this characteristic of it, but the beauty of this is it has a pretty quick working time. So, you know, if you're in a shop that's like 100 degrees, this stuff you're going to have to work with kind of quick. So higher temperatures in your shop are going to make it really kind of a fast turnaround. But you have about 8 minutes of working time, which for most things is plenty. You don't have to vacuum degas it. It does really well. You can literally see it almost looks like a fizzy pop or something like that, like a soda. You can see the air bubbles just coming out of it. So you don't really need to vacuum degas it, which would be a problem with that short working time. And the beauty of it is you can demold, so that's kind of a weird saying, but demold your mold in 30 minutes, which means we're going to be able to actually make this thing and demold it basically on the same stream, which is something that you guys know we never do that with any of the blanks that we make. It's always kind of, I'd have to wait a couple hours at least to see the results, to pull them out. With this, we can pull the thing out and take a look at it. So I'm not gonna mess around. I got things to show you later on. We'll kind of do all the little like updates and stuff a little bit later. So I just wanted to jump into this, get this stuff going, and then we can kind of move on to other things for a little bit and then come back to it. So again, you got only about 30-minute wait time before you can actually pull it out of, you know, get your mold out of the mold that you put it in. So let's switch to the other view. Let's go to this one so you can kind of see what I'm doing over here. What I have here, so I have the Amazing Mold Maker, and it's a two-part, 1-to-1. I'm just going to weigh it. Illumilite sent this to me to kind of test out. Actually, they messed up. I actually asked them to send me the epoxy that's fast-setting epoxy, and this is what they sent me, which whatever, you know, no big deal. I wanted to try this out too, I guess. Originally, I wasn't very, I don't know, interested in this, but then I kind of saw, one thing, I saw Jake's video and kind of got an idea of what was going on with this stuff, and then that got me a little bit more excited. Where this really comes in, because of the quick turnaround, if you're doing things like rapid prototyping of some sort, oh man, this stuff is what you want to use. Because you can, you know, get it done quick, test it out, and then make another one if you messed up, you know, so it's a really good one for that. One other nice thing about this is it's FDA approved for like food stuff. So if you wanted to make, for instance, if you wanted to make, you know, specific shapes, like make a mold in a specific shape and then pour chocolate or something like that in it, you can use this stuff. So that's kind of fun. One of these days, maybe like over Christmas or something like that, one of the holidays, we might have to pull this stuff out and make some chocolates or something. I don't know, any kind of food stuff that you can kind of pour in. Chocolate was the first thing that came to my mind. All right, so I got my gloves on. So we have our silicone rubber. Now there's a couple different ways that you can do this, and what we're going to do, we're going to make a copy of these. These are real gator jaw bones, and so we're going to make a mold of this so that we can pour faux gator jaw bones. All right, so that's kind of fun. I got a couple of them. I actually used this one already. Got a couple of them. We're going to do it a couple different ways because depending on what materials you have for your mold, you could do this a couple different ways. So, one, if you have, you know, a lot of times like tools and things, like, you know, if you buy Easy Wood tools, you get these tubes, these big tubes. They come in a big plastic tube. And so this was actually, if you guys remember the thread cutter, thread chaser that I bought from, I can't think of the name of the company, but whatever, it was a tool. And so you got just a tube. So at that point, I got a piece of melamine here, and you can get this stuff at the hardware store. It's particle board, but covered with a piece of like a plastic type surface. So you can just hot glue this down, and you got yourself a mold. You could use PVC, but in some cases, I would probably rather recommend you go with something thin like this that you can just toss, because you may need to cut it off. It may be kind of hard to get your, you know, like the mold out of this thing. The other way to go is foam core, foam board. All right, and I actually put a link to where you can get this on Amazon in the show notes. And there's also a link to the amazing mold maker with the ZAC10 coupon code. That'll save you 10% on the first order. So let's assemble a square mold first. I would say that if you can get a hold of something that's round like this, and you can even use like a paper towel, you know, roll, or like a toilet paper roll thing, like cardboard. It may be a little bit, if you got plastic, that's a better way to go. But in a pinch, you could even just use like the brown thing in the middle of your paper towels. All right, but foam core is pretty good. If you go with a round one, you'll probably save a little bit of silicone because you don't have the square edges. All right, so we have our pieces. This is a 2-inch or so by 6-inch mold. And so our little gator jawbone should fit pretty perfectly. I'm just gonna kind of wipe that off. I got my hot glue gun out. And the way that I do this, I just run a bead down the bottom. I prefer this foam core stuff for silicone mold making over, what is that stuff called? The corrugated plastic, because you don't have those little holes in the middle of it. All right, and I'll go get a piece of foam. I think I have some of that plastic stuff just to kind of show you what I mean. But this stuff is solid, so you don't have silicone running into these areas. And then let's see, let me just look at this. Is this 2x2? Yeah, okay. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a bead on one edge and then one bottom. All right. And I just cut this stuff out on the bandsaw. It leaves kind of a jagged edge if you're not using a very fine blade or a zero clearance kind of insert thing. But it's not that big of a deal. Your mold doesn't need to be perfect. So what I've done here is put one side on the bottom that had glue and one side on the side here. So this is pretty much down and dirty, just assembling it as we go. Put another, I'm shaky today. What is going on with me? Another bead around 2 corners here, 2 edges. This thing down, and I like to kind of press it and move it around so that glue kind of, you know, bunches up in there. I'm going to take another step and actually put glue on the outside at the joints again, just to make sure. You don't want to be, you know, leaking silicone anywhere. But, you know, realistically, this ought to do. That should be pretty much sealed. All right, so for the 4th side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the glue on the edges and then one on the bottom here of the new piece. Edges of the sides real quick. And one on the bottom. And then we'll press this down and kind of move it around on all these little edges. Get a nice press, and we have ourselves a mold box. All right, now, second thing what I'm going to do here is, the way I'm going to mount this in here, I cut a little, this is a tiny little dowel. It's like a 1/4-inch piece of cherry dowel that I cut off into maybe like, you know, a little bit over a 1/4 inch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to apply this with hot glue to the bottom of this thing, and then I'm going to glue this whole thing down, and it's going to be sitting up off of the bottom. All right, so when you're making a mold like this, the bottom part is going to be actually the top of the mold. So I don't want to just stick this thing down in there. We're going to have a big flat area where on the top. So what I want to do is raise this off a little bit, and what that's also going to do is provide a little pour spout. All right, so it works pretty good. And like I said, this was the reason why I wanted to test this before, you know, instead of just, you know, run this and do this on the live stream, and then it turns out that this mold, the way that I made it, didn't work. So I have tested this. It works great. So I'm just going to put a little drop of glue on my gator jawbone real quick. Get off me. And then just kind of smush this down in. Hold it in place for a minute. Let that glue kind of dry. Now the other way that we're going to do this one is going to be mounted. I have a flat edge, and I'm just going to stick it like this and then put our mold around it. So while that glue's drying on that other piece right there, I'm going to apply a bead of glue on the bottom of this other jawbone. I'm just going to stick it down. I'm going to put it kind of over on this side of the melamine. All right, hold that in place. That can kind of hang out for a minute. And if you want to get really technical, you could come back in with an X-Acto knife. That's actually what I did on the other one, and cut off this little blob of glue. I think I'm just going to leave it because I don't think it matters that much, but we'll kind of take a look and see what it looks like leaving that little glue blob. But if you wanted to, wait for the glue to kind of, you know, harden up a little bit more, and then you can kind of scrape it off. I don't think it matters that much. It's not that big of a deal. But just an option out there if you want to do it. Now, the one thing that we need to do that I totally forgot to do the first time is we want to spray our gator jaws with this mold release stuff. All right, so this is the universal mold release from Alumilite. It works for things like this for silicone. You could use this with resins. It works for anything. That's why it's called universal. You can do anything with it. So it says resin to resin, silicone to resin, silicone to silicone. All right, so it's basically a universal, you know, whatever, spray. So I'm going to shake this up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of soak this stuff. I'm going to get a good amount on there, but it'll just make it a lot easier to get our jawbone out of the master mold. You don't need to spray the foam core or any of that stuff. It'll pop right off, but you definitely want to spray this, especially since there's so many little pores. You can maybe see some little red spots in there. That's silicone. It didn't come out. So definitely you want to spray off your parts so that they will come off much easier. All right, so let's see here. I don't like spraying mold release around my casting area particularly. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that camera over there around, and I'm going to kind of do this over here. And I'll give you guys the full view with this camera. Maybe like this. So I need a camera crew. Jeez. All right, so now you can kind of see the whole thing. I don't want it to be like dripping, you know, but you definitely want to get the whole piece. Okay, so I got that side. Flip it around. That might cause an issue with my hot glue, possibly. So I'm going to probably want to wipe off this nib thing on the bottom before I try and glue it down. And then this one will work pretty good because I already got it sitting there. Hopefully you guys can see. I can't see the monitor. Let me give the little jaws another, or the little teeth cavities, another little spray there. All right, so we'll get this thing back kind of where it was supposed to be. Not too bad. Sorry guys, I'm not looking at the chat right now, so I apologize if I'm missing anything. I want to make sure that we get this going. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of denatured alcohol and just kind of wipe off the bottom of that that wood piece. That's going to just in case, just so our hot glue kind of sticks okay. Okay. Now let's glue that piece down. Get to the overhead view. I'm going to put a glue blob on the bottom of this thing. A healthy glue blob. And just kind of stick it down and hold it in place for a sec. I'm trying to look in the mold box, make sure that I don't have this kind of too far to one side or the other. Oh, yeah, it's not sticking. Shoot. All right, let's try. I'm going to peel that out of there. Let's try a little acetone on that wood. Try and get some of that mold release off of there. Didn't think about that. One thing you could do is tape that off when you spray it. That'll fix your problem. Okay, let's try that one more time. Kind of let that, hold that in place for a minute while that glue hardens up. There we go, we got it that time. No biggie. So what that's doing is holding it, raising it off of the bottom, you know, the bottom of this piece. That way the silicone can kind of run down in through there. All right, and so I'm going to kind of leave that sit for a second. These things out of my way so I don't knock them over. All right, now let's affix our pipe. Might be better to go with something a little larger than this pipe, but 2-inch might be a little bit better, but let's see if we can get away with this. That way, this is about 1 3/4. Let's just see if we can get away with it. I'm going to kind of hold that in place, and I got my glue gun. I need may need another glue stick, so I'm going to get that ready if I need to load it back up. I'm going to kind of tack it real quick. Put a couple blobs on either side of it just so I can kind of line it up so I'm not trying to hold this thing. It's kind of sliding all over the place. One other thing is I kind of was just spraying this. So I probably should have wiped off the melamine a little bit with some of that acetone. So that's what I'm going to do. Kind of tacked it down a little bit, but I think it would be best to wipe off this surface. Yeah, because the glue's not even sticking to it. I'm going to do it one more time just for good measure, because we want to make sure that we're getting a good glue bond, the melamine. Okay. Try this again. A little glue. There we go. There's a piece of glue somewhere. Okay. So again, I'm going to tack this. Places. That'll give me a chance to line it up where I want it. Let that kind of cure up a minute. Yeah, Doug called the non-stickiness. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't watch the chat and get anything done. All right, so that's in place. In this case, it's not like it's the end of the world. Just wipe it off. All right, so we'll get this nice and glued up. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to come over here and go around this box, make sure the bottom and all of the edges are fully sealed, just to make sure. We don't want leaks. That will ruin your day and waste a lot of silicone. I would say that if your mold leaked and you didn't get it, filled up, like it came out the bottom, the nice thing about silicone is it sticks to itself extremely well. So it's not really like the end of the world if your mold leaks. You basically just need to pour more silicone over it. However, silicone's not cheap, so you may as well just seal this up the first time. You don't have to worry about it. All right, so I'm just going around all those joints, the ups and downs, and all around the bottom. Okay, so our mold should be bulletproof at this point. Let me get our hot glue gun out of my way. I think we're done with that. So we have a couple of different things going on here. One thing that is also nice about the silicone, like I just said, it sticks to itself extremely well. So if you're trying to make something with this stuff and you only have that 8-minute working time, one way to deal with this, if it's like really hot in your shop or something like that, or you're doing a really big mold, is just mix up a little bit of silicone at a time, pour it in, and then do it again. You don't need to get the whole thing done all at once. You'd rather do it in multiple stages because it's literally there's not gonna be any difference between pouring it all at once or pouring a bunch of layers, even if it's days later. And one thing that we're gonna do while we're waiting for that, while we're waiting for this stuff to cure, is we're actually gonna mix up and try to fix these molds that I don't like, that have these cavities in them. And these are obviously really old. They've been I don't know how long ago that person, whoever made them, but they're way old, and we can just pour more silicone on. It's going to bond to itself, and it should work pretty well to fill up those little cavities. All right, so I think we're good. Now this mold, it's like I said, it's about 2 inch by 2 inch, and I want to get it at least like probably about 1.5 to 2 inches, deep. I want to say that 350 grams total should work fine for this. I think I did about 300 last night. It was maybe a little bit shallow, but it was good enough. So I'm going to go up to about 350 today on this one. And this one probably won't require as much. It's only a 1 3/4 diameter. So I think we're just going to mix up 300 and see how that goes on that one. Again, if you're short, you'd rather be short on something like this because you can just pour more on. If you're over, then you've wasted a little bit of silicone. So let's get our cup ready. So again, very simple 1-to-1 ratio, and I'm just going to do it by weight. I don't know if I didn't read like the actual instructions. I don't know. It just says measure equal parts A and B. I think Jake actually weighed this, and he's like, it's pretty close. I think I actually remember him saying that. I prefer weight measurements whenever possible. It just, the numbers don't lie, right? So I'll pull out a scale anytime I can. All right, so this is side A. I don't think it really matters that much. Let's move this over. Try and get our scale. If I can get some. Ooh, I don't have enough cord. Let's move the camera a little bit so you can kind of see this, the measuring and all this stuff a little bit better. Hopefully that'll be enough. See how that looks. Yeah, you can see it there. All right, so 350 total. We're going to go with 175 grams of the part A. And a little bit over, 175.2. I'll try to match that with the part B. So we got a red part and a white part. And the nice thing about that is once there's no swirls, it's going to turn into kind of like a pinkish orange. Once there's no swirls, you're pretty much guaranteed that it's mixed up. So that's kind of nice. Some of them, like the Platt series, it's just clear on both sides, and so it's actually kind of hard. You can add a color to one side if you want, but you have to buy special silicone dye, I think. I don't know. I need to talk to Alumilite about that. Ask them. I'm not sure if you can just use the Alumilite dye, like the stuff we use for casting for that, because I do know that they actually have some that are made for silicone. And they're not cheap, and it's kind of silly. So this is already done for you, so that's kind of nice. So 175.2, that's our part B. You can see it's pouring out. This stuff is thin. It's not super thick viscosity. That's what I do not like with silicone. That makes life not fun. For a couple reasons. You got to pull out like a heavy duty stir stick, or you can use a paddle mixer, but in this case, like I'm not going to use a paddle mixer for this. Pretty small amount, right? Rather just use a stick. Oh, I went a little over there. That's okay. 175.3. We're 0.1 off. That's all right. It's not going to affect anything. Okay. And we'll just take our stick. Look how simple this is. This is up there with easy. This is super easy. It might be a little bit thinner viscosity because it is 86 degrees in the shop. So, at 72, it may be a little thicker, but I don't think it's going to be like difficult to stir. And one of the nice things is I notice, I just kind of barely stirred this up, and it's almost like there's no, there's no white left. I wouldn't call this good, like I'm going to keep mixing this up a little bit, but considering you only have 8 minutes of working time, this stuff I think was made so that it mixes together extremely quick. Like there are no swirls or anything happening. I would imagine this stuff is actually ready to pour right now, which that is not really the case with most silicones. You got to kind of mix it for a good amount of time. Part of it has to do with the thin viscosity, but it also may have to do with just the formula. I think the intention with this stuff was to make it super easy. Like this is the beginner's, silicone. If you want to just dip your toes in, this stuff is probably the easiest to work with that I've ever seen. So again, we're not going to vacuum degas it. I don't think you'd have time if you even wanted to. So I would not do that. I did test the mold out. Now, it's kind of difficult to tell with like a gator jaw piece, but I did test the mold that I made last night out with casting it, and there was no deformations or anything noticeable. So I think it degasses on its own quite quick. All right, so now at this point, we're just going to do this one first. What I want to do is I want to lift this up kind of high and pour it in a thin stream underneath the piece to the bottom of the mold and let it just kind of flow around. And especially let it flow into those holes. We need to get those things filled. Where the teeth, the gator jaw teeth holes. Part of the reason I'm pouring this so high and so thin is that actually gets rid of air bubbles as you're pouring it a little bit. A little trick I learned from Punished Props. And they'll even go way higher. Like, you know, they call it the bombs away method. And they'll do it from like 5 feet up, you know. They're usually doing it. That kind of part of the reason that they mention that is if you don't have access to a vacuum chamber, and you're using a silicone that really kind of needs to be vacuum degassed, you know, you don't want to have anything, and you're going to definitely be using pressure. The bombs away method will kind of help save you a little bit. And this stuff, it looks like it's thickening up already. So you really got to kind of move a little bit fast with this. But like I said, I did my tests yesterday, and it was the afternoon when it was warm, and there was no problem, so I'm not worried about it. Ooh. Man, yeah, so I didn't run a timer, but we can look back at the man, this stuff is already setting up. So it would have been a lot smarter to do this in multiple stages because this stuff is literally setting up. So there's a drawback to it. I mean, it's thick. All right. So 350, that sucks. I think we're good, but that would have been a lot better had we done it in multiple stages. So I'm going to get a smaller cup. And we're just going to mix up like 100 grams at a time. But at least I got one good one, so I'm not worried about that. But can you see that, guys? That didn't work out so hot. But I think the rest of it is okay. If not, then I learned my lesson, you know, whatever. So I'm going to mix up another, I don't need like 100 grams, I don't think, but this mold's kind of funky. Oh, man. You got to move quick if it's hot in your shop. I don't think that you'd have nearly the same kind of issues if, in fact, I'm going to just use one of these cups because I don't need a big one. I don't think you'd have nearly the same issues if it's not like, you know, 90 degrees. All right, so let's, I don't know, let's add like, I don't know how much we need at this point. Let's do like 25 and 25. All I'm trying to do right here is just top off the first one, which realistically, I don't know how well this worked out on this first try. Because I was going kind of slow pouring it. We'll do it a little bit different on the next round, and we won't run into this issue. A little bit over on that. I went pretty far over. I'm going to add just a couple drips of the Part A. I went about 0.4 over. Just get this to 30 and we'll be good. Or 26, I mean. That ought to be good. There we go. Okay, so let's top this guy off. One of the nice things, if you have air conditioning or it's cooler in your house than your shop, I don't see why you couldn't do this indoors also. So you can kind of lower your temperature in the summer that way. Get everything prepared, bring your molds in, and just do the pour indoors in a cooler area, and you'll be good to go. I really don't think you need to stir this stuff forever. I think it's meant to be quick. I'm just going to go for it. We'll pour this over it, and hopefully, if you have a little bubble here and there, it's not really the end of the world. So let's see here. Do I have any non-plastic cups? No, not really. We're going to do 100 grams at a time on this next one because I want to make sure that at least one of these, turns out perfect, basically. So this thing, I'm going to say we need probably like 300 grams. This is nice because I actually have no clue. 200 might actually fill this sucker up. So let's just do 100 grams at a time. 50 of part A, 50 of part B. But it's so quick to mix up and do everything that, it's not like we're really losing a lot of time by doing multiple pours here. We're pretty close. 49.8, that's good enough. Probably go way over if I pour any more. Zero that out and go to around 50, 49.8 with this one. There we go. Nailed it. Once again, I mean, it looks like this stuff just mixes really fast because there are no swirls at all. All right, so I'll pour a little faster on this one. I don't think I need to worry so much. So that got us about a third of the way. I'm not going to use one thing that I did yesterday was I was a little under on my first, the first cup. I wasn't sure how much the mold held. And actually, I got some more in here that I want to get out. But I decided to just pour more into the same cup, and the stuff, the first round set up on me. And so there was some kind of chunkies. Not really a huge deal even with that, but you don't want to be using the same cup with this stuff because it is fast, but that's kind of the whole point. All right, so let's do another 100. Let's do 60 and 60. That might actually get us to where we want to go. 120 total. Okay, we got 60 there. We'll do zeroed out 60 here. Oh, I went way over 60. I wasn't paying attention. 65. All right, I need to add 5 more of the part A. Daydreaming while I was pouring. One thing that I can also mention is using kind of a skinnier, taller cup compared to like the quart cups. It's probably going to make this silicone heat up a little bit faster. So if you want to extend the time for a little bit larger volume of stuff, use a bigger cup basically, and that should also kind of help out. But I think you're better off just dropping the volume amount, just pouring a little bit at a time. You need to do something larger. All right, close enough. Look at how quickly this stuff mixes together, I'm telling you. I like it. I think it's good. Here we go. Oh, plenty. Now, one thing that I meant to do for this specifically, I want to know where those holes are. So the gator jawbone, or like the teeth holes, were kind of oriented this way on this side of the thing. I don't want to be cutting my mold open on that side. So I'm going to put a little mark on the other side of my tube so I know which side to cut to get the thing out. I don't want to stick the knife into the, there's going to be little bits of silicone protruding, into these holes. I don't want to cut open my mold there. That'll screw the mold up. So I'm going to set a timer. Stop, start, clear. For 30 minutes. This one's going to be done a lot faster than that. Oops, let's do that again. 30 minutes. Let's just do 35 just to be on the safe side. And that way we can demold both of these, but we're gonna set this aside for now and kind of look. So let me stop and see what you guys are up to, if anybody has any questions. I'm not necessarily a master expert at mold making and all this stuff, so I can generally answer most of your questions, but I'm not necessarily an expert at it. Philip Danner is the expert, so if you have questions about mold making, he can probably answer. We're doing gator jaw, faux gator jaws. We did that on the Patreon thing on Friday, so I thought, why not use this? Somebody was asking if I can, show this on the stream, this silicone. So I thought, why not? Let's do it. So let's see here. So does anybody have any questions? Let's see here. How long will these molds last? Probably a long time, honestly. I don't know. The one thing about this is every time you use them, you're going to be like kind of pulling the silicone out of these little tiny holes. When you have like intricate details like this and deeper ones especially, that makes it, that will wear a little bit harder, I've found, on molds. But I mean years, as long as you're not doing anything crazy with them, Certain, like if you're going to be using epoxies, epoxies are usually harder on these things. That's actually one thing I don't know for certain. I don't know. I'd have to ask Alumilite about that. Urethanes are generally a little bit easier on molds. They don't like heat up as much. "35 minutes of super chats." I think there was a super chat. Did I see someone? No? I swear someone did. Richard super chatted. Thanks, Richard. The silly YouTube thing didn't tell me. I thought that I saw something out of the corner of my eye, so I appreciate it. Thanks for the super chat. Let's see here. Mutt Nuts, Crazy World. How's it going? From Maryland. That's cool. I have never been to Maryland before. That's something I got to put on the list. All right, so we got a couple things going on. Now, one thing I'm going to do is show you guys the mold that I made yesterday, okay? So here's how it is, and all I did was I thought about it more. At first, I just cut a straight slit, but you're actually kind of better off doing kind of a jagged thing, so it'll have something to, when you put it back and you want to pour in it, it's nicer to have something that registers a little bit better. So when you're cutting open your mold, it's best to do it that way. Like I said, I'm not an expert necessarily, but Philip might have some other ideas on that too. But one of the problems is we were talking about mold release. This would be kind of difficult to really get mold release all over the place inside. So just to let you know, another way to do this that would probably be a little bit better, but it's going to require a little bit more preparation and it's a little bit more difficult, is doing a two-piece mold, which I think this stuff would do a two-piece mold quite well. It's actually really flexible. I mean, it's firm enough, but it's flexible enough for this kind of thing. I didn't have any problems. I actually poured, this is actually a faux gator jaw. So I already poured, one in this thing and it demolded quite fine. The hardest part was getting the master out, but I didn't apply the mold release on the first one, which I think that, when we in 30 minutes or so, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I think it's going to be a lot easier than the first one that I did. But I'm very happy with it. But you could do a two-piece mold, and then at that point, all you do is just pop it open, and demolding would go very smooth. So that's something that I want to look into and try out with this stuff. Because it's so fast, it makes, like you don't have to wait a day overnight or whatever to just get the mold out of your, the master mold out of your mold. You can kind of see how you did, and like I said, for kind of rapid prototyping, this stuff is amazing. Like, it's 30 minutes, and technically it has a 24-hour full cure time. However, Jake already poured one right away, and I poured this like within I want to say that I waited maybe 2 hours after it was, cured, after I had poured it, 2 hours after pouring the stuff. and I cast in it and it worked fine. So, I mean, technically, you know, you really would want to wait longer. For the full cure, I would imagine that's probably a better way to go for longevity of your mold and all this stuff. However, if you're in a pinch, I mean, you can pour it right away and it works pretty good. So, I don't know. Yeah, urethane. That's another reason. We were talking about urethane versus epoxy. Even on HDPE, if I was using epoxy every single time, I mean, it destroys HDPE pretty quick. So you'd have to make more, and that's another reason why I like using Alumilite Clear. It demolds easier. It doesn't, you know, totally wreck your molds. And I think part of the reason is that I think it's partly the temperature. I think that's one thing that it does that. And it may actually leach. I want to say that, you know, like, at least in this case, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I heard this is actually like a wax base, or it has wax in it or something like that. And I think that some of the resins actually leach out some of the stuff in HDPE, and that's what kind of, when I say it kind of destroys it, it dulls it, and I think it's sucking out some material in there. I heard from somebody that it's actually a wax base or something, so there's wax in it or something like that. I don't know if that's true, but you know, something is getting taken out of it as well. Yeah, the short set time would, yeah. When you're making two-piece molds, you can only pour half at a time. So if I was going to do that for this, what I would do is I would line the bottom of my mold with clay, and then, you know, stick our piece in there halfway, and then you pour the first thing, then you got to take it all apart, take all the clay off, flip it, and then pour the rest, okay? And so if you got to wait a day for the first thing to be done, that sucks. You know, like, it's going to take, you know, 2 or 3 days before you're actually, you know, ready to pour in the two-piece mold from start to finish. So this stuff is pretty awesome. So it's easy to mix. I really like that. It's one of my pet peeves with a lot of silicones out there. When it's taffy-like, I'm done. I'm not even going to mess with it. I will say that the Plat series from Alumilite also is super thin viscosity. I really like that stuff. I would say it's even borderline on it, whether you really need to vacuum degas it. It's so thin viscosity. But this stuff mixes together fast. Like that's the other thing, is it's a thin viscosity, so it's easy to mix, but it just seems like in like 3 stirs, there's no more swirls, which it looks pretty good. So, and then the speed of it, the only drawback I think is, you know, it's 87 degrees in my shop, and that first one I kind of blew that pour because I was messing around trying to do the bombs away thing, show something to you guys. I think that mold will still turn out good, but I think you're way better off doing smaller bits and just working up to it, since time is really not a factor with this stuff. Yeah, I go through molds, Doug, pretty fast. Alumilite white is even easier on molds, so I actually have some separated out where certain ones are only for Alumilite clear. It's just slightly harder on molds than Alumilite white. I got a couple that's all that I use them for is Alumilite white. They can last probably a year without using any mold release or anything. But if you use mold release, then Alumilite clear is not bad. But you know, a lot of these handle blanks I'll be using, I use a lot more of the ACC Plus, and it's not that bad. That stuff demolds pretty well, but there are a lot of epoxies that just stick to molds really bad, and they're not fun. So I think let's see here. So we got a couple things going on. First thing I want to show you guys are the results from, yeah, Plat 55 is a totally different story. That stuff, not so awesome, but your Plat 10 and 25 and 40 might be a little thicker, but 10 and 25, which is what I would recommend most people use for things, those two are very thin viscosity. Those are my 2 favorite. I would even probably say for most people, regardless of the project you're using, Plat 25 is going to work for 85 to 90% of what you want to make. 55 is extremely firm. And if you guys remember, that's what I made my first faux burl. In the video, I used Plat 55, and it was a complete nightmare. It's inflexible, so you can't get your part out. I think it's made for things that are very thin and flexible that you're casting, that it needs to not move whatsoever. I think that's what you want to use something super rigid for. But for something that you're casting that's going to be hard, you actually want a more flexible rubber. And especially if you got a lot of undercuts and like lots of details that are going to be difficult to demold, you can use the Plat 10, and that stuff is super stretchy. So demolding is a lot easier with the lower, or the lower numbers in the Plat series. But again, you got to vacuum degas it. You really want to wait at least overnight. And it's also a platinum-based thing, which can cause some issues with certain materials and stuff. I guess I've never had an issue with it, but it can have some consequences to it, I guess. Total Boat, yeah, Total Boat, eating the molds up. Oh God, yeah, 10-to-1. I mean, some of these silicones, that's the other pet peeve I have. They have like ridiculously odd mix ratios that are impossible for you to like calculate out. If you're doing it by weight, you're just like, are you kidding me? Do I need, it's like, it makes it really difficult if you mess one up. Then you're like, oh, you got to think about it. How much do I need to add to this? So yeah, 1-to-1, even just a 2-to-1 is fine. I can't remember what, I think Plat. Yeah, the Plat series is 1-to-1 as well. Yeah. 1-to-1. Right? Let me just make sure. Plat 25. Yeah. Yeah, those are 1-to-1 as well. So, yeah, I don't like weird mix ratios. So we got 23 minutes and 36 seconds. And I got to be honest, because it's so warm in the shop, I would imagine that this stuff doesn't need 30 minutes to set up and be ready. But I'm going to switch camera views. So we got 3 things that I want to do. I want to share the gator jaw blanks that we made on the Patreon Hangout. We had a lot of fun with that, and people came up with some really good, brilliant ideas, let's say, for color choices. Oh, I already have one of those things. So I'll show you those things, and then we're going to fill the holes in this thing and see if we can get this to not create weird suctions. And then we'll pour in this one. I think we should probably just pour into the other ones. Let's just do that and just see how those things work. So I'm just going to put this one away. I know that one works pretty well. Let's just go ahead and like literally in 30 minutes we'll cut them open, pull the things out, and pour some resin in those other ones. I think it'll be kind of fun to do that, and we'll see how it works. I wouldn't advise that. I don't think. In most cases, I don't think that's really the way that you're supposed to do it. But let's see if it works. Why not? All right, so overhead view. So we had a couple of different ones. Frank came up with black and green, and that was a pretty cool color choice, I thought. Always fun. And then we tried, this didn't turn out as cool as I would have hoped. We wanted to go for a red, white, and blue. And I mean, it's okay, but this looks a little bit more like a candy cane to me with some blue gator jaw in it than like, red, white, and blue. It doesn't jump out as like Independence Day to me. But I think they're cool. It's just I don't know that we nailed the mark on the idea. And then Dave came up with, he was very specific, and I thought this was kind of interesting. He wanted gold and silver resin, and then he said some sparkly stuff. And with the blue, he wanted to go with the blue jaws, but I had one more of the white. And man, these things, so what we went with for the sparkly is the red macro pearl from Wine Country. Man, these things are wicked. Like, they turned out good. I would have never came up with this combination of colors on my own. So kudos to Dave for coming up with a brilliant idea on a color combo. And then the other thing was I wanted to make some Florida Gators. So University of Florida colors. These things are always popular. So we did that kind of first. That was my pick, I guess. So not too bad. We had a lot of fun on Friday just coming up with colors and playing around. But these gator jaws are really cool. They make some cool blanks. I like them. All right, so let's see here. Silicone oil. Huh. Oils. Huh. Mold Star, yeah. I've used that too. That stuff is super thick, I think. I don't like that stuff. Let's see. I guess let's just kind of, no, not that one. This one. Go with this one. What I'm going to do is we're just going to mix up a little bit and just fill in these holes and see if that kind of fixes these molds. Don't worry, Philip. I still want to get some good ones from Philip. I just want to see if this will actually fix anything. So I don't know how much we're gonna need for this. I'm just gonna mix up like 30 grams total, so 15 of each. We'll just see how far that goes. I need some towels, paper towels. So how was everybody's 4th of July? Did you guys do anything fun? Our big thing was the ice cream. We actually didn't go, so if you guys were here on Wednesday, I was talking about our big thing was we were gonna go get ice cream at this coffee shop. They serve one of the local creameries ice cream that's just fabulous. And we don't usually get like desserts and stuff too much, so I was like, let's get ice cream on the 4th of July. It'll be fun. We did it, I think, a couple of years ago too. And so the problem was it just didn't work with the timing. Like they closed at like noon, and it just wasn't going to work on you know, like for like the 3 days. So we decided instead to just go to the supermarket and get ice cream. You know, that makes sense. The alternative was to go to Dairy Queen and get a Blizzard. But it was actually less calories if you just buy a bucket of ice cream. So I need, what was I doing, 30? Like 15 of each here? But I realized when we were there, so one of the ice creams, if you guys ever want to try an ice cream brand that is absolutely phenomenal, Tillamook. So if you guys are familiar with Tillamook, the cheese, they're up in Oregon. Tillamook makes ice cream, and it is amazing. And they have it in some of the supermarkets. So they have this one called Marionberry Pie that is just like my favorite ice cream. We went and got some Marionberry Pie, but then when we were at the supermarket, I realized that they also, Baskin-Robbins now sells pints at the supermarket, and they had pralines and cream, which is like, that's always been my favorite ice cream, so we got both of them. We didn't eat the whole thing. We ate the whole little pint of pralines and cream, but we didn't eat the whole quart or whatever gallon, or I don't know, a normal size bucket of Marionberry Pie. But yeah, definitely try out Tillamook ice cream. It's amazing. And if you're ever up in Oregon, make sure to go check out the Tillamook like factory. If you like cheese, you're going to be in heaven up there, and ice cream. It was awesome. And they got a lot of flavors and things that they don't sell in the stores at the factories, which I thought was kind of cool. At least it was cool when we were there. It's not very cool anymore now that we're not there. Okay, so 14.9 is what I got on the first one, so I just stopped there. They sell both brands. Nice. Yeah, it's so good. And actually, there's lots of different flavors. So here was the crazy thing. So I'm trying to kind of watch my calorie intake and stuff, and both me and my wife actually. And we were looking. So another thing that we were thinking about getting was one of our favorites is Americone Dream from Ben and Jerry's. We used to always get that like back in the day. That's a really good one. We looked at the calorie amounts on Ben and Jerry's compared to Tillamook or Baskin-Robbins. It was like twice as many almost. I was like, okay, we're not getting this. So watch out with the Ben and Jerry's. It's fabulous, but ugh, it's very fattening. Blue Bunny, haven't tried that. Breyers. Another one that's really good is Dreyer's slow churned. That's actually what we were trying to get at the grocery store. They supposedly had one that was a Reese's peanut butter cup, and that stuff is supposed to be kind of like a little bit less calories, the slow churned. But they didn't actually have that at the supermarket. I think what I'm going to do, let's see here. I'm just going to, I don't know that I need to like pour this over, like overfill it, you know, over the existing kind of little feet. We'll just kind of see how this goes. Try and get it kind of close. Actually, the more I think about it, it's still going to create a little bit of a suction if we don't like totally cover it and create a new base, I don't think. So I'm going to need to mix up just a little bit more, because I do think I actually want to cover everything. I want to get it up on this lip and totally cover that other thing, so we have a pretty big base. We'll give it the benefit of the doubt and see if we can fix these things so they're not just only confined to non-pressure tasks. I'm just gonna do like, I don't know, 5 and 5. That works. Let's just do 6 and 6, just to be. All right, 5.9 will have to do. The Target logo. That's funny. Stone Cold ice cream. Yeah, we used to go there all the time too. That's pretty good. They have one of those up at the Lake Tahoe at the ski resort thing, like Village, I guess. Let's say we'll drop in there from time to time when we're up there. There's also an ice cream sandwich shop. Supposedly, like that's like a trendy thing right now. And oh man, that place is ridiculous. So you got cookies on top of whatever ice cream you want. Oh, and they're like homemade cookies, like, you know. Oh, heaven. Yeah. Frozen juice. That's not too bad an idea. All right, so let's see. I'm just gonna go in the middle here and pour this until it kind of goes over. This desk isn't particularly like level, so be better off doing something like this on a totally level surface. But I think I'm just gonna dump all this out. I think I might actually need a little bit more to get everything to work the way I want. Hopefully this stuff doesn't set up before it levels out. That's a drawback to this stuff. Better off with a little bit longer working time if you're trying to make it level out. Dang it. All right, so our timer's at 11 minutes on our molds. I'm gonna do one more pour because I'm not happy with that. That's gonna also cause issues. I'm gonna mix up a little bit more this time and just kind of let it, possibly even just let it run over. I don't know. Let's see. So I'll do like, I already got to do like eight and 8. Okay, we got 8. Ah, you honeymooned in Tahoe. Nice. Tahoe's awesome. Tahoe's one of my favoriteest places ever. An 8. Got everything up here. The winters are fun, the summers are fun, and so are the in-betweens. Okay. See if we can get this thing fixed here. Yeah, I try to stay away from dairy usually too. It doesn't, I don't know that I have any like a lactose intolerance or anything like that. Is that what we're talking about? Milk? Protein. Oh, the protein. Yeah, I don't sneeze. I don't have an allergy, but it doesn't necessarily sit well with me, especially if I eat a lot of it. But I really can't give up cheese, and I'm gonna have ice cream sometimes. Just how I roll. Okay, now there's definitely no little areas where it can sit and cause a vacuum. That's fine. That should let us know if this fixed the problem. It's not pretty particularly, but it should do the trick, I think. I'm just gonna set that aside. I'm actually gonna, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna move it over here. Okay, and then let's see, what was the other thing we were gonna do? I thought there was one more thing. Oh, do you think the other side of the mold is sagging? Yeah, it might be. Yeah. Let's see, what else was I gonna do? It's called road season. Oh man. Haagen-Dazs creme brulee. They discontinued it. Don't you hate that? That's terrible. All right, so let's see here. What else do we need to do? You guys remember what else was I gonna do? I guess just pour the molds. Is that it? Demold them and pour them. Show you those blanks. I can't think of anything else. So we got 6 minutes left. Now the square one should definitely be done because we did that at least 6 minutes after the round one. So why don't we get started demolding that? It takes a little bit to get everything unstuck. Ooh, have a good dinner, Dave. No, I'm not gonna pour in that other mold. We're gonna take these apart completely and just pour in these ones. All right, so a couple things you're gonna want is an X-Acto knife, a good X-Acto knife, sharp one. And then I use a little putty knife to kind of pop off the hot glue. All right, so can you guys, nope, you can't see, that's a good thing. Looked at that. Here we go. We're just gonna go with the overhead view and get rid of that other one. So we need an X-Acto knife or something else similarly sharp, and I use a little putty knife. Right, so I just putty knife the hot glue off. Be careful, you don't want to miss or have it slip, and take your fingers out. If you're going to be, one thing I learned very early on is don't be sticking your hand holding onto something and then shoving sharpish objects at it. That will land you in the hospital. Okay? Always get your hands out of the way of the blade. I know this isn't super sharp, but I did actually kind of sharpen the thing. And I really don't want it to slip and gouge my finger. Takes a little bit of doing, but we'll get it. A little easier if you have like a workbench or something to kind of hold it down better. There we go. Once you get under it, then it all goes pretty well. Okay. Let's see if I can cut the hole in this fairly well today. So realistically, it'd be a lot better if I didn't have this lumpiness. I might come back and just pour some stuff on top of it again, but I don't think it's going to make that much difference anyway. All right, so I'm just going to first make some slices here. I'm going to pour a little bit of a spout, or I mean, I'm going to cut a little bit of a spout in this place where resin can kind of pool up, and I'll show you the example, what I'm trying to do. I did a pretty good job with this one. Again, definitely not an expert at doing this stuff. I don't have a whole lot of experience, but I just want a little bit of a kind of a bigger hole there so that I can kind of overfill this. One of the reasons for that is if for some reason, you know, these are going to be pressurized, I'm usually going to use Alumilite clear. And so I just mix it up and there's air bubbles in it. And when I pressurize it, all those air bubbles collapse and the level of the liquid goes down. So it's better to overfill a little bit just so you don't, you know, end up, once you pressurize it, not having enough. It's even really the case for if you're not pressurizing it. If there were some air bubbles or something, the level could drop, or it may just flow around. You thought you poured enough, and then that resin kind of flows in and around things more, and what you thought was enough resin isn't anymore, you know. So it's always good to have a little bit of a reserve on the top that you can kind of just pop off. You're going to have this sprue that you know, on a piece that you would have to remove the sprue anyway. It's not really changing a whole lot of anything. So just to let you guys know what a sprue is, it's that little nib, the little nubbin, you know. So if it mattered to me, I can cut that off. You're going to have a sprue no matter what, but I'd like to have a little bit of a funnel as well. And you can see there's not a whole lot of funnel left. It's a very thin amount, which means that the level kind of dropped, and the only thing that's left, there we go. So we're ready to go now. The only thing that's left was just a little bit of a sprue, you know, a little bit of a nubbin. Not particularly awesome with an X-Acto knife, so more practice necessary. Gonna be ugly, but we'll get through it. All right, so we got a little bit of a trench, a little bit of a pothole there. Now I'm just gonna cut from this thing, and I'm gonna make some kind of zigzaggies. I kind of clean up some of those cuts, make sure that that's totally separated down in there. Okay, so we got one side. Here we go. Now the nice thing is these don't need to be totally perfect. If you're trying to make a reproduction of something very specific and it has to have absolutely amazing detail, you might need to be a little bit more careful than I'm being, so you don't mess up anything. Okay. Now there's a lot of little pores in the tops of these things, like little, you probably can't see it on this screen, but so I'm just kind of separating this, trying to pull those little, get the pores cleared. Got another little area that I need to cut here. Got it. Another area too. There we go. It's definitely going a lot easier than the first one that I forgot to spray. Hardest part is getting all the little gator jaw, or gator, like the teeth areas out. Oh, trying to be careful as I can. Oh yeah, these are coming out way easier than the first one. So make sure to always use some sort of a spray on your master, and everything will go quite smoothly. Just want to take your time here though. There's no need to rush it. You don't want to rip off, there we go. Don't want to rip off anything. All right, so we got all of our little teeth holes and everything in there. So that one's good to go. And if I wanted to, I can reuse this, make more molds, and make more gator jaws. All right, so let's pop this off. Let's see what's happening here. Habib's here, how's it going? Might have missed some things here. Yeah, I think you could make a sphere mold out of this. Definitely. Ah, and Doug's here. Fleetswood, how's it going? I have not tried to put a cat into a toilet. What? What did I miss? Oh, I see, I see. I see. Doug's sticking the cats in the toilets. That was a little bit easier. The nice thing, you know, melamine is pretty simple to clean up. Not a lot sticks to it, you know, the hot glue doesn't really stick to it that much. So I can kind of just clean that up and we're ready to reuse this for whatever we want. More molds if we wanted to. All right, so I'm gonna, let's see here, I'm gonna need a thicker. So again, the issue with this is you're really, you know, if you wanted to use, you can use PVC, but you definitely need to spray it. Frankly, it's going to be a lot easier just to cut this off because, you know, it's pretty well stuck in there. I didn't spray this tube. So I'm going to go get a bigger knife and hopefully not screw this all up. I don't want to go too deep into this mold, but I'm going to use one of these, you know, one of these guys. Just kind of try to score it a little bit, get it at the top, cut, get it started there. And then just try to kind of score this thing a little bit. If I can. Oh, I lost my blade, that's why I'm cutting. I'm going to use the X-Acto and see if that actually does anything. Needs to be like a little bit more powerful, stiffer blade than the X-Acto, but I think this would have been easier if I would have just sprayed this thing. I think I need a sharper knife too. Come on, sucker. I'm going to get a screwdriver because I think this thing is ready to pop apart here. There we go. Once you kind of get it started, then it's pretty simple. Famous last words, right? Some pretty thick plastic, that's why I'm having trouble with this. It's no joke. There we go. Woo! Dang, look at that stuff. All right. Now that we got that taken care of, and it's nice and firmed up. I mean, I don't know if it's fully cured, but I mean, it's hard. It's, you know, definitely firm. All right, now I totally don't know which side I made that mark on. I wasn't paying attention. So let's see here. How does this thing kind of oriented? I can see teeth holes, I think, maybe right there. Oh, actually, you know what I messed up? I messed up, guys. Huh. Well, I guess I didn't really mess up. So I had it glued like this. So let's see here. It's a opposite one. I think we can figure this out. Not that. Hold on real quick. I think I can figure out which direction this thing was facing. I think the teeth are over here. Let's just hope. Yeah. Probably should have done a diagonal cut on this. That's okay. We'll do a diagonal cut down the side here. Ooh, got it. So I kind of took this way apart, but I think it should work okay. One thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use rubber bands because obviously that's not staying together now. So it's always good to grab a couple rubber bands or something, get this thing kind of put back together, and then get it ready, and then you're good to go. So let me find, where did I put my, I had a bag of rubber bands somewhere. Haven't needed rubber bands for a while. No clue where I put them. Maybe they're up in my cabinets up here somewhere. Nope. Nope. Well, okay, so we're gonna maybe use tape instead. I think that might work as well. Let's see if that'll work. Nope, you gotta use enough tape. Let's see if this will work here. Rubber bands are really the way to go. I just don't know where I'd put mine. Fortunately. All right, so I got that kind of where I want it. So that'll work in a pinch. I think rubber bands are a better way to go because this is going to be kind of a pain to take off. All right, so that's not bad, and we got a nice hole to pour in. So 2 molds. 2 molds, guys. Let's see here. Where's Richard at? I hope Richard's still here. Calling Richard. You need to pick some colors. If anybody wants to pick some colors we got 2 gator jaws to do. I don't know how well multiple colors is going to really work with this. I've never really poured multiple colors into molds like these. So can't say that I'm going to be amazing at it, but yeah, you could use another piece of tube, but it's actually kind of hard to get them in and out. I find rubber bands to be the best way to go. Blue and green. Richard's here. Blue and green. And which one do you want? Do you want to try the vertical pour or the horizontal? I'll let you kind of pick. And you could, even with this one, you could probably kind of mess around with it. Again, these don't really matter that much if they're perfect, because we're going to end up turning these things, on a lathe. So being perfect is really not that big of a deal when it comes to gator jaws. But if you're doing something where the details really matter, then you really want to be, probably more careful than I was being, taking that, cutting it apart. And also, when you're setting up to cast, you want to make sure that, everything is together the way it should be. Otherwise, it can kind of come out deformed a little bit. All right, so let's see here. Richard wants vertical. I think that this would possibly be a little easier. Now, one way that you can do multiple colors and kind of swirl them around is to do like a dirty pour, where you pour both into the same cup, and that way, hopefully, it's all kind of coming out together. One thing to keep in mind about doing this. Now, again, there's 2 things going on here. Now, if you're casting something that you're just going to take out of the mold, let's say like dice, right? You're not going to cut into this. There's not, what it is what it is. The surface is what it's going to be. In this case, if you want to get color swirls, you have to get each color on the outside surface of your mold. So you're almost better off like opening this thing up, literally, and like pouring a little bit of your colors and kind of doing like super thin amounts and just swirling it, because the only thing that matters is the outside. Now, if it's something where you're going to be cutting into it, it's not as big of a deal, but keep in mind, if all of one color kind of coats the outside, like coats all of these surfaces, then that's what the outside is going to look like. Okay? In this case, I can maybe kind of play around, pouring a little bit, and, as we go up, probably going to get 2 different colors on it. But this one's going to be a lot. I can't really open it up, and pour. So just a couple of thoughts that crossed my mind about, pouring these things. You got to kind of think about it a little bit, how things go. Oh, we got another one. So what colors do you want? Onomatopoeia. Let's see here. Yeah, so you can pick whatever you want. So you get the horizontal mold. And I'm probably going to open this thing up. Let's see here. I think I wrote down, because I did a test yesterday and I poured way too much resin. I think I'm going to mix up about, I think they probably take about 15 grams or so. And I would say that, you know, these two, because that's for the blue one, but I think these are about the same. So 15 grams probably, but I'm going to mix up 20 just to make sure. Gold. Ooh, that's a good one. We got a few golds. Let's see here. We got, let's see. So, and we got, what was it? Blue and green. So Richard, do you want, do you have any specific blues and greens that you were thinking of? Do you want kind of an oceany look kind of thing? A couple of good colors that come to mind. Well, emerald green is probably one of my favoritists ever from Casters. We got a nice emerald green. And then lots of blue. So you're gonna actually, you know what is a really good one that I just used, I think, for the first time? Dark ocean blue from Eye Candy is fabulous. It's like a nice, I don't know, it looks good. So there's a couple ideas if you want to go with those. If you have other thoughts, I can go with that, darker, lighter, whatever you want to do. Okay, so Richard's good, and gold. So we have, here's another thing that I want to mention to you guys, for you guys that might want to do something like this. Again, going off of, you know, the outside is really, if the outside matters, another thing that you can do is kind of paint on micas inside your mold. This would be a little bit more difficult. This isn't the most awesome thing. This is a lot better if you just have like an open mold. Do I have something? Well, like these coasters, for instance, you know, where you're just pouring something into a trough type of deal. Or another one is like the faux burls, where you're just pouring into something. You can just paint stuff onto the surface, then pour your resin kind of carefully over it. And so again, if the outside surface matters, that's a good one. Now, in the case of where you're turning into it, then I don't really think it matters. You know, you're gonna probably cut it away. So let's see here. Yeah, Eye Candy's got a lot of really good ones. And if you go on their website, it's actually mind-boggling how many they have. So we have a gold metallic from Alumilite. Ooh, how about this one? Gold metallic dust. I think it's like bigger chunks of gold, of mica. Kind of like almost like a macro pearl, but just gold flakes kind of thing. That might be kind of fun. Got a couple of those. I got regular gold. I got Olympic gold, goldenrod. There's tons of golds. Let me know. I don't know. I haven't tried this one out yet. I don't know if you can really see that very well on the screen there, but it's like chunks, like kind of almost like a gold glitter kind of thing. Kind of gold. It's almost like if macro pearl were gold. Man, this stuff is messy. Woo! It's all over the place. Gold glitter everywhere. The dust. Okay, sorry, I didn't see that. I was messing with dusty stuff. Okay, so let's do that. So we need, I'm going to do these one at a time just because right now it's 87 degrees in the shop, and like, I think what the deal is this, I just got Alumilite Clear Slow, you know, like the 80-pound kit not too long ago. And I think it is like the freshest Alumilite Clear I've ever gotten because it's kicking pretty fast. So I don't want to mess around, and I got plenty of time, right? So we're going to do one at a time. I'm going to drop a little platform down in the bottom so that everything sits nice. So let's go with this one first. How about that? Yeah, we'll do this one first. We'll do the gold, since it's sitting here so nicely. I don't need that. I need small cup, little tiny cup here. So we're going to do 10 grams. So it's 20 grams total. Should fill this thing, I think. 10 grams of part A and part B each. We'll start with our A. And I'm going to put the work area camera. I think the thing got messed up again. I already set this. Getting annoyed with this camera. There we go. That should be a little bit better for this view. I hope it wasn't dark the whole time. Jeez. I didn't notice. All right, so we are ready. We got both the cameras are working right. We got 12. Oh, I went over 12.7. I'm just gonna have to dump some of that out. We want 20 total. 10 grams of part A. There we go. There we go. 10 grams and then 10 grams of part B. So this is super small stuff, right? Usually I'm talking like 300, 500 grams, 20. Another thing that I was thinking of is, if you wanted to make a lot of these things, that's again where I think a 2-part mold might be a little bit easier, where you can like really lay everything out. And then when it comes time to demold, you just kind of plop the top off and just kind of pop everything. And you could do like a whole array of them. Be kind of cool. But if you're, one at a time, no big deal. They're super, super easy with this resin or silicone. Oh, I went a little over. It's okay though. It'll be kind of interesting because the first pour was kind of a flop. I kind of messed around too long and it started setting up on me. So this one will be interesting after we pressurize it to see if it gets warped or anything, because if there's massive air bubbles that got trapped in your silicone, when you pressurize it, those are going to collapse and then they're going to come back after the fact. So you really, if you're going to be pressurizing your molds and details really matter, you definitely need to make sure there's no air bubbles trapped in your silicone. Otherwise, it'll cause some issues. But I don't know. I have high hopes. I think this will turn out good. It's not super important that it's all perfect with these things. I've said that a few times today. Gator jaws are not exactly perfect things in the first place. So as long as you can see the holes, it doesn't really matter. Like, that's almost the most important part. This stuff is messy. Oof. All right, so let's just get some of this stuff. I'm not even going for any measurements. We're just gonna dump. I'm gonna do 2 scoops. We wanna make this stuff nice and gold. Because it's kind of bigger flakes, I would imagine that it would tend to be a little less pearly. So that's another reason why I added a lot. That's looking good. What do you think of that? Woo-wee! Sparkle gold right there. Okay, and I'm not messing around. There's no reason for me to wait for anything. We're just gonna pour it. I'm gonna pour it kind of thin, small. Let it kind of flow in and around everything. I'm gonna stop. We're probably about halfway at this point at least. I'm actually just gonna kind of roll it around. Just make sure it's getting into all the little cracks and crevices in that mold. There's a lot of weird kind of undercuts, these gator jaws. Another thing you can do is just kind of squeeze it and move it around a little bit. You might get a little flashing. Again, in this case, I don't really care. Not a big deal. I'll just kind of, you can just, take it off of there. Kind of squeeze it around, make sure you've gotten it into all the spots. I'm going to pour a little bit more on this. I want to fill this to the top because the level may go down once we pressurize it. All right. I'm going to actually put this, I have a piece of wood in the bottom of this pot here. That's a little bit sturdier. Go for that. Pressurize it. So again, this is clear slow, so it's going to take a few hours before we could even pull this out. So we're not going to get results today, but I'll post on Instagram and Facebook. Probably this, what day is this? Wednesday? Probably this weekend. Tomorrow's my day off, so I won't be out at the shop. Okay, so we got that. Let's pressurize it. I'm only going to go to like 55, 60. I don't need to go to 70 on these things. And so we do have a little bit left over. I could probably even drop this down. It starts to get a little bit harder to mix when you're only talking like 15 grams or something. So we're just going to we'll leave it at 20. And if you're doing multiple colors also, it's a lot better to have a little bit extra because you're going to leave some in the cup. You're not going to get all of it out of there. So if you're only mixing up one color, you're only going to have one cup with some on the edges. But if you're doing two colors or three, each cup that you add is going to have a little bit left over, stuck, I got glitter everywhere, stuck on the walls of your cup. Okay, so 20 grams is going to be good, especially for the multiple colors on this next one. Ooh, I don't know about this stuff. It is messy. Okay, now this one, I think I'm going to go for the dirty pour method on this and just see how it goes. Oh, good sample pack. Man, that's impossible to even, they have so many colors. Like, if you go on their website and look under green, there's like 13 different greens and they all look the same and it's crazy. I don't know. All right, so let's see here. I'm just looking at a couple others. Yeah. Well, so yeah, I mean, there's no problem with pressurizing silicone, but and one thing that I don't know for sure, it seems like it would make sense, but if you have air bubbles in there, and like this is the whole point of vacuum degassing. Otherwise, there's no reason to do that. But you want to get rid of most of the air bubbles before you pour it. That's why you do the vacuum degassing with it. But if you end up trapping large air bubbles and they collapse when under pressure, it's going to totally deform your mold. So, which I've had that happen in certain cases. Or I've bought molds that were not made for pressure and they just totally deform. And it's important if you're making a dead copy of something that needs super details. Because if the thing, like on these dice, if the mold warped, like on the edge of one of these numbers, it would be completely worthless, right? So that's why it's important. There's a lot of things though that don't really matter that much, and most silicones are not necessarily that thick, and they degas on their own pretty well. But this amazing mold maker stuff, I think it degasses itself pretty well. So as long as you're not pouring it still and it's setting up on you like I did on that first pour, I think you should be good with this, even if you pressurize it. But I'm worried because that one was definitely something where I'm pouring stuff that's setting up, and that can easily trap air, like if it landed somehow and there was like an air pocket. So we'll see how that works out. I'm not that worried about this one. I think that we did good on that one. Let's see here. All right, so we need blue and green. So like I said, I think what I'm going to do for this one is we're going to try and do like a dirty pour. I'm going to kind of pour both of them in at the same time. Also, I'm probably going to pour it into a separate cup and try and get both colors like right next to each other, so that when I pour it, it'll kind of be pouring both colors at once. And another thing you can do is just give it a little bit of a swirl after that. So I might even try that. All right, so let's get the camera in and we'll go for it. See how this works. I'm excited about these things. These will be kind of fun. Zero that out. Let's get this thing out of the way too. I don't need this. You're in my way. Get out of my way. Okay, 0. Let's go for 10 grams of A. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix it all up in this cup. And then I'm going to pour it, pour half into another one so that we can mix up that other color. And then I'm actually going to pour both of them back into something else. So we got 10. So I'm going to need actually 3 cups. And I could probably get away with just pouring all of it on like one side, but I actually want to try and get it, pour both of them into one cup so so it's filling up the cup evenly rather than just kind of sloshing it around a little bit. All right, so part B, 10 of them, 10 grams. I think I'm gonna these things open. Tough part about something like this is you're better off, keeping it more on the liquid side. So, waiting till the end of the working time so that your colors don't bleed. Pouring it thicker into something that has a lot of detail isn't the best. But I think we'll be okay. I'm probably gonna go on the lower end of things on the scale. The way this resin's working, I would probably wait until it reached like 120 degrees. That's just how things are working right now, based on the viscosity of the resin at that temperature and everything. That's when I've been pouring color swirl with this batch of resin. But I think we're going to go for like 115. It'll still be a little bit more liquid, but I think we'll be okay with the bleeding and all that kind of stuff. I think everything will work out all right. So what I'm going to do is we got this mixed up. I'm going to dump off 10 grams into this cup. And that'll be one of our colors. Close enough, 9.8. Okay. We're going blue and green. I'm just going to break this in two. You guys see? Yeah, you can see. I don't really need a whole lot of this stuff, so that ought to probably be good. We'll kind of take a peek at it. And this is that dark ocean blue from eye candy. That's a pretty good color. What do you think of that? That's a nice looking blue. Okay, so we got that, we got this. I might need another. Go for another scoop of the green. Seemed a little bit on the thin side of color. While we're at it, why not? Let's just match them. Do 2 of these little scoops. I get it nice and, there we go, nice and opaque. Although transparent gator jawbones, that's pretty cool too. So either way you want to go. There we go, okay. I think we got a couple of minutes here before it's going to be at the temperature that we want. And the reason, again, for anybody that's kind of new to this whole idea, when you're trying to kind of pour, like sometimes you'll see on the internet, depending on what space you're in, I guess, let's say, most people in like the turning space call this color swirl. That's what I call it. Some people will call it like marbling, depending on what types of projects you're doing. but you want to wait until the kind of near the end of the working time. Wait till, you know, don't pour it right away kind of thing. And so with Alumilite Clear Slow, typically if you're above 95 degrees under normal kind of room temperature conditions, you're good to go. Right now, like I said, in my shop, it just, and this is a really fresh batch, so it's warm in the shop right now, which means that the starting viscosity of the resin is thinner. And so I end up in the summers, I wait longer. I wait to, wait for a higher temperature or just longer. Because what happens is at the end of the working time, it starts to thicken up. You call it kind of a gel state, gel period. And so the thicker viscosity will keep your colors separated so they don't bleed together. That's the whole point of that for anybody that's kind of a newbie, doesn't really understand what this whole wait till the end of the thing is. That's what we're trying to do, is keep these colors from just bleeding together. We're at about 105. And another thing that you can do is just kind of look at the viscosity coming off the stick. I could probably pour this right now. It is a little bit thicker, it looks like. But that's kind of a judgment call at that point. We're over 100. It was like 104, 105. $108. We're getting close. I think we're good. Just looking at the viscosity, it looks okay to me. So what I'm going to do here is wipe off my sticks. What I want to do is I'm going to pour both of these into one cup. Take my stick and just try and get as I can. No, there's not a whole lot left in there. Okay. Oh, I should have saved that. That's in the bottom of the trash now. And I think what I'm going to do is we're going to just kind of stir this up a little bit. So hopefully we'll get a little bit of blue and some green when we pour all the way up. Another way to go is you can kind of alternate between colors. That would probably work. But again, if anything that kind of rolls down the sides of this thing is going to be picked up. So that's why I'm hoping that this works out. I don't do this type of technique though that often, so we'll have to just kind of wait and see. So can you see what? Yeah, you guys can kind of see what's going on. Hopefully this is enough resin. I kind of stop and just kind of tap this, kind of roll it around a little bit. Just make sure, again, that it's kind of getting into all the little crevices and stuff. You don't want to squeeze it tightly though. You want to make it messed up. I don't really have a sprue on this, but the way that this is pouring in, I don't think it's really going to make any difference. I'm going to kind of tap this, see if any bubbles come out. Kind of squeeze it a little bit, but I don't want to do a whole lot of that. Okay, so I think I'm just going to add a little bit more to the top here. I think we'll be good. So to the pressure pot we go. Hands are sweating. Whoa. All right. There we have it. We got it done. So we actually made the molds and used them on the same stream. That's pretty wicked. So again, if you guys want to check out the amazing mold maker stuff, this is a pretty good silicone. I think it is extremely easy, especially for like beginners. There are some silicones out there I really don't think that I would recommend for a beginner to even mess with. It's just frustrating, and I don't even like using certain ones. This stuff is about as easy as it gets. The only issue is you only have 8 minutes. So if it's hot in your shop and that's that 8-minute thing, we're talking like at room temperature, normal room temperature, about 70 to 75 degrees. Then you have 8 minutes. So I don't know how many minutes I had, but I don't think it was 8. So, you know, just like I did, just mix up smaller amounts, pour it in. You can just keep adding to it and you're good to go. And if you're in like an air-conditioned, you know, cooler area, then you don't really have to worry about it. But you only have 8 minutes, okay? So you do have to kind of move, you know, a little bit quicker than normal. But you got a little bit more time with the less, you know, if you mix up less at a time. So pretty fun though. What did you guys think? Was it fun? Resin blobs? You made blobs with resin? Oh man. Let's see here. Dust the mold in mica and pour white alumilite. Yeah, you could do that too. Bob's your uncle. Yeah, I know. Yep. That is not normal. Well, room temperature is around 70. That's normal room temperature. That may not be what your room temperature is, but that's what normal. When people say that, usually, because there's a lot of products out there that they say like store at room temperature, or, you know, these specifications are based on room temperature. You're talking somewhere between, it's usually like 72, I think, is like room temperature to most people. So just to let you know, that's what that means a lot of times. Yeah, it is. It's a tight, you know, time frame. If you add a lot of, I don't know. I mean, you really don't want to be mixing up a ton of this stuff and pouring it. You know, you want to do small amounts. But you know, for most projects that people are making, I mean, this would probably be my go-to for a lot of things. If you just wanted to make a few, you know, single pen blank molds, and I mean, even Jake, actually, if you guys didn't check it out, Jake did a video that was really well put together and everything. He might have done it like a live stream too, I don't know. But he made the big molds that he makes out of it. So it's not like you can't, you know, mix up a lot, but at the same time, I don't think when he did that, it wasn't 150 degrees out. But he made a mold, 2 of them, this big with this stuff. So it's not like you really have to watch out. But if it's like, you know, really hot in your shop, then I don't know. Just you'd have to mix and pour a little bit faster than I was doing on that first one. And for anybody that kind of joined, you know, after I initially started pouring stuff, make sure to go back, because I kind of messed up. I was, you know, messing around, you know, trying to pour it thin and all this stuff, and it started setting up on me. It literally hardened in the cup. So you got to kind of, and I think this stuff was made to just kind of mix. It mixes so fast. Like you don't have to sit there and mix for days. It's just like literally 4 stirs and it was like mixed up, it looked like. So, you know, you can mix it quick and then just, you know, get it in your mold and you're good to go. So it was fun. I enjoyed this. I want to try some, one thing that I've really never done, because I'm a little bit kind of on the lazier side, and I want to make a 2-piece mold, doing the full, you know, clay on the first, you know, level, and then put it in there and do like a proper 2-piece mold sometime. And I got to be honest, I mean, well, the other reason I'm kind of lazy, it's not so much laziness, it's just that I don't have a lot of time to do these things. So the idea of doing the bottom half, you know, one day, and then waiting another day, and then, you know, for it to cure, and then pouring the second part, and then waiting another day to actually be able to use it. You know, 3 or 4 days can kind of go by. With this stuff, you can just do, you know, the first one 30 minutes, take it all apart, second one 30 minutes, and then be casting in 1 day. So anyway, I'm pretty excited about this stuff. It's a good product, and I've tried other products. There's other brands and stuff where the idea is it's supposed to be simple and you don't have to vacuum degas it and all these, you know, things. And frankly, it did not meet any of those criteria, according to me. It was pretty thick viscosity. It was not particularly easy to work with. I think they nailed it with this one. And don't forget, guys, this is FDA compliant for, you know, whatever, I'm not sure which FDA thing, but basically you can make food molds out of this stuff. And I think a big part of the reason why, you know, like I told you, it mixes like three stirs and it seemed mixed up. I think that has to do with the food compliance with it. It doesn't take a lot to get it mixed up, and when it looks mixed, I think it is mixed because it kind of has to be if it's going to be compliant that way. So pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Do I have something turned with gator? Actually, yeah, I do. I'm going to be putting a video out because I had to repair a gator jaw pen. So Sunday there'll be a video. Let's see here. That camera's going to die. Hold on. Hold up. Real quick. Yeah, gator jaw is pretty sweet. I got to plug my camera in though because I'm pretty sure it's going to die in like 2 seconds. There we go. We're back in business. All right. This view. Here's one. Made this a while ago. I think I did this on, yeah, I'm pretty sure I did it on the live stream. Pretty glossy. I just redid the CA finish on it. There we go. That's not reflecting too bad in that angle. Pretty sweet. So this is true, real gator jaw. Dye stabilized a little bit of green in there on a cigar pen. So it turns, one thing to note is real gator jaw is pretty abrasive, hard stuff. So, you know, you're probably not really going to want to pull out high-speed steel. I think that's a good time to pull out your carbide if you got it. If you only have high-speed steel, then you're going to be sharpening a lot more. But, you know, it turns fine. There's no issues with it particularly. One thing I would probably recommend, and this goes for, it's not just gator jaw, this just kind of goes for a lot of mixed materials. Wood is not so bad. I don't find it particularly necessary with that. But if you have, you know, mixed materials like, you know, bone or like even like pine cones and, you know, random type things like that mixed with resin, I think you're really better off going for a top coat finish rather than just buffing it out. Just to make sure that you know, if there are any areas where the resin in that material didn't bond particularly well, or if you have seasonal temperature changes that could cause the material to expand or contract, putting a finish on is going to keep things a lot more protected. What happened with that was I was on a stream and I turned that, and it took a little longer because it was that bone and it's hard. And I think I just said, okay, I don't really want to have to go through and do a CA finish. I'm just going to buff this out. And it looked fine. There was nothing wrong with it. But over a couple of years, I left it in my backpack, which would see, you know, pretty cold temperatures in my truck in the winter, and then in the summer it would get pretty hot. And I think that the material just kind of expanded or contracted or something. And the last time that I pulled it out, this was a few months ago in the winter, I pulled it out and it, like, there were sharp edges. So you're better off just kind of using a CA finish, most likely on something like that, so you don't have to deal with it. Plus, a CA finish over two different types of materials is going to give you an even glossy sheen over the whole thing, where I just buffed it and the bone was a lot, you know, duller looking than resin. So just a couple of little tips, I would say. So let's see here. So I think that's about it, guys. So I want to thank the super chatters, Richard and Onomatopoeia, for hooking us up with some support. I really appreciate it, and a great idea. Sorry, I was kind of poo-pooing the idea. I was going through my brain last week when you mentioned seeing this stuff, and at the beginning I was like, yeah, I'm not really sure. I didn't really understand, you know, this product that well. I didn't understand what it was. And I had found one that I like. I like the Platt stuff. But man, I'll tell you what, this stuff is awesome. I'm glad you recommended that I try this out and that I had some. So big thank you to Alumilite for sending it out to me. It was actually kind of a mess up, but it was good that they sent it out, because that's a really good product. I'm pretty happy with that. A lot of times people come out with stuff and they're like, oh, it's supposed to do this, and it doesn't, you know, or something. And you're like, well, it's okay. So pretty happy with it. So big thank you again for you guys' support, and for picking some awesome colors. I can't wait to pull these out. We'll post some pics on Instagram and Facebook when I get these demolded on Friday, most likely, or Saturday. Let's see here. Let me scroll down. For geezy molds, I think it would work great for that stuff. You know, a couple other things that you're looking for in molds, you know, or silicone products. You know, there's the ease of use, let's say, and I think this stuff is about as easy as it gets for ease of use. Aside from you don't have a whole lot of time to get everything, you know, poured. Let's say that's the only drawback, is that 8 minutes. You know, all you have to do is just mix up less and do multiple pours if you're, you know, if it's complex or you have to mix up a lot or it's hot. For actual use, for like the molds themselves, you saw, well, you didn't see me actually demolding one of these things, but it's very flexible. You saw me kind of cutting it, and I mean, I would say it's about the same. I can look this up and actually tell you for sure, but I would say that it's very comparable to Plat 25. You know, like the flexibility and everything. Plat 10 is going to be super floppy. Just to kind of give you an idea of the difference. I have a couple that are made out of different materials. So this is Plat 10, and I mean, it's like super floppy stuff. This was not a good mold to make that out of, but I wanted to try it. This stuff is super flexible. This is Plat 25. Not as flexible at all. I would say, I don't know, the Amazing Mold Maker might even be a little bit more flexible than Plat 25, possibly. So it's pretty flexible. I think it would work great for geezy molds or pretty much anything that you want to throw at it. I was actually a little bit worried for these gator jaw pieces. I would probably have gone with Plat 10 for this, just because it's a little bit more flexible, easier to kind of get out of, you know, the mold. I probably would have picked that had I been using one of the Plat series ones. But this worked really well. Like I was a little bit worried that it might be a little bit too rigid, and so it might be somewhere in between the 10 and the 25, I would say. But it's a good choice, and it would work good for, you know, Jake was using it for those big block molds. So, I mean, you could, I don't know what you can't use it for, unless it really has to be super rigid, firm. It's not that, but, you know, those are very specific use cases. Let's see. All right, Twyla, have a good one. So, yeah, so anyway, I think that's about it for today. One other little kind of quick tip thing. So here's the mess up. But what I can do, if you mess something up with silicone, or even if you have a mold that you're like, I don't want to use that mold anymore for some reason, or you screwed it up, or who knows what. We have this silicone, right? And you're thinking, oh, trash. Here's the deal. If you have, you know, if you're pouring kind of a block mold and you got large spaces that you need to fill up, you can cut this stuff up and then toss it in your cup that you're mixing up, and then it'll take up space and you're not wasting silicone. All right, so you can't like reuse it, melt it down or anything like that, but you could cut this stuff up, and because silicone sticks to itself and totally bonds, like you wouldn't even see it in there. But I would probably cut it into like slightly smaller, you know, bits. And then when the next time you're mixing stuff up, pour that into or just stick it into the mold box, pour over it, and it'll take up space, and you didn't just waste money, basically. All right, so, and that goes for, you know, for molds that maybe you don't like, you know, that don't work or something like that. Anything like that, you know, don't throw away big chunks of silicone, because, and it doesn't matter, it's all going to be compatible with any silicone, I think. Just toss it in, and it'll take up space, and you don't have to use as much silicone the next time. So just a little bit of a tip. Let's see here. So I think that's about it, guys. So again, I appreciate you guys all joining the fun tonight. We'll see how these things turn out on the weekend. Big thank you to the super chatters. I appreciate you guys' support. And the gator jaw blanks. So the way that, just to let you guys know, so we did the gator jaws blanks on Friday's Patreon stream. And so there's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we made 10 blanks. And what I'm doing, though, is the patrons get first dibs on these. So if you're a patron and you want to snag one of these, you'll have to ask if there's any left. People have already claimed some, but I'm selling them to patrons first. And then once that's like after about a week and I'm not getting any, nobody's saying that they want one, then whatever's left over is going to go up on my website. Okay, so just to let you know, if you were looking to get one of those things that we made, wait about a week and see what's actually left at that point. Okay. So yeah, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the week and weekend. I didn't get to see what you guys did for the 4th of July, so I apologize for that. I asked the question and didn't get to see, but so maybe you'll have to, next week, mention, in the chat. Hopefully I'll be doing something where I can kind of keep an eye on the chat a little bit more. I want to see what you guys did for the 4th, see if you guys did anything fun. So anyway, guys, have a wonderful rest of your evening, and I will see you guys next Wednesday.